So has Nikon become a viable option for a video-first creator or cinematographer? Because let's be real, when you buy a camera for video, you're really buying into a whole ecosystem of products and accessories, and you want to make sure that this whole ecosystem has all of the first-party support for hardware and future firmware updates, third-party cages and compatible accessories, workflow integrations, and the ability to use any lenses you could possibly want. With the Nikon ZR, the recent 28 to 135mm telepower zoom lens, and let's not forget that whole acquisition of Red thing, we wanted to walk you through a few different shooting scenarios in case you're a video shooter who's starting to feel a little curious. So we're going to anchor this whole conversation in the Nikon ZR, but I'll preface this by saying that Matt did a full in-depth first look video when this camera launched, and I highly recommend checking that one out for those of you who want a full overview of the camera.
I think the rest of the industry kind of need to step up their game, and fast.
But for a very quick intro, the Nikon ZR is a full-frame hybrid mirrorless camera that is most notable for its ability to record in 3 different RAW formats, including Redcode RAW, R3D, NE, all in a very compact body for a very affordable price. And on top of all this, it's got a giant 4-inch touchscreen, it's got great battery life, Nikon's excellent autofocus, in-body vibration reduction, and it's also a full-on photography camera. So what's the catch? Well, I decided to arm myself with a Nikon-provided ZR and 28 to 135mm lens, some accessories, a studio space rental, and a bunch of questions from the B&H product page, YouTube, and, let's be honest, Reddit, and figure out what it's like to shoot with the ZR now that the hype has settled and we can look at the camera for what it is. So this is my first hands-on time with the Nikon ZR. I didn't get a chance to play with it when it first came out, but honestly, I'm kind of glad it worked out that way, because a lot of what I observed, I would say other people have as well. Things like the 4-inch screen. This thing is fantastic. No notes. It's giant, it's responsive, it's color accurate, it's everything you want. Once you get used to this, it is very difficult to go back to your more standard 3-inch display. Actually, what's really cool is 4 inches is actually big enough that it means you might not, in a lot of shooting situations, need to bring an external monitor. We actually brought one just to kind of test to see what the difference was. And it's, at least between a 5-inch monitor, it's minimal enough that you might not need to bring that, which is actually kind of huge because it means it's less hardware you have to bring, it's less batteries to charge that hardware, it's less HDMI cables that you have to plug in that you could lose potentially. And it's also great for this because you have a micro HDMI instead of a full-sized one, but Nikon, I do forgive you for that. But it's a nice way to keep your setup a lot more compact and run and gun if you need it to be. Other things like the CF Express and battery placement, yes, they are next to each other, and in certain setups, if you have your camera directly mounted to like a base plate on a tripod, it can make it a little bit difficult to switch. But if you have something like this guy, which is SmallRig's new cage for the Nikon ZR, it actually works really well. They give you plenty of clearance here. In our instance, we also have the base plate mounted to the 28 to 135 lens, which Nikon, we covered this lens when it came out a few months ago, and Nikon was selling this as more of a video-centric lens. It's almost like Nikon knew they would be making a cinema camera. Crazy. And what's nice about this lens is it can work as a photography lens, but it's really optimized for video, and it's what we've been using for the entirety of our shoot so far, and that has worked really well, and once again, pairs very nicely with this. But using the camera, and the different menu setups and codec options where you could really dive into the nitty-gritty on this. So as an example, one thing we really wanted to try to do was record in all of the internal RAW formats you get. A lot of reviews and first looks have been focused on the Redcode RAW 3D, the R3D NE RAW. And understandably, it's a big deal on this camera. But you do also get NRAW and ProRes RAW internally. And so we wanted to film just like a simple sequence using all of these different codecs and just kind of see what they looked like. This is where I will say, I took a hit for you guys because Nikon has like a 120-page PDF user guide on this camera. And if you are buying this camera, I normally don't say this, but I would say look through that guide because they give you a lot of helpful practical tips on how to really maximize using this camera. And I want to give you some examples. So if you're shooting a Redcode RAW, let's say, they actually will give you a specific zebra pattern sensitivity to set depending on whether or not you're using a view assist or not one, because on this camera, you have a certain amount of dynamic range. Even though it is RAW, it is important to make sure that you are exposed properly. Because a camera like this, it's not going to have the dynamic range of a $20,000 RED camera, so you do have to keep that in mind. But Nikon does give you a lot of helpful tips and information on how to maximize that, so it's worth knowing that if you want to use this camera and really maximize it. But there are some other quirks that I don't know if these are bugs or features, like hyper-specific stuff, like focus peaking, for example. If you're shooting in Red Code RAW and you have focus peaking turned on, the focus peaking will disappear if you switch from manual focus to autofocus, but also weirdly enough, it seems to disappear if you go from having the view assist off to having the view assist on. This is something we've observed other people say that they've also experienced. Not sure if this is how it is designed to work or if it is a hiccup that could be fixed in firmware, but we notice it does not seem to do this when you're recording in ProRes RAW. You are able to still see the view assist along with the focus peaking. So just small stuff like that to keep in mind. Another thing that's worth noting is you can import different LUTs to view when using Red Code RAW, but for NRAW or ProRes RAW, you just get the standard view assist, which converts it to a more Rec 709 look. Once again, not sure why that is necessarily, but one thing to keep in mind. But using this camera, it is, despite everything I just said right now, the value proposition on this camera is truly fantastic for the price you're paying, for as minimal of a setup as this is, and for all the amazing things you're getting, the image quality, the excellent battery life, the flexible codecs. It really is a fantastic all-around package. You just, once again, I think it's important to just be aware of some of the quirks you might have to navigate with a camera that is able to cram so much value into such a small package. So we're going to test the vibration reduction because another example of a weird restriction, well, maybe not weird, you can have vibration reduction on when you're shooting RAW, but electronic vibration reduction, that extra little bit of stabilization, that is disabled when you're recording in any RAW format. And you'll notice this when you actually turn the camera on. As soon as you go into any RAW format, about half the menu items will immediately get grayed out because it is all about shooting as close to what the sensor is reading out as possible. So a lot of those little handy, sort of helpful, beginner-friendly features might disappear. But we're going to be putting it through some other tests, and we're going to see what that footage looks like as well. Okay, this is Red Code RAW. Just see what's going to keep half pressing. Does it keep focus? It seems to. I'm just going to do a simple thing. I'm just going to follow you as you pull the glass up to your lips and just drink from it. This actually might also be good dynamic range test, actually. Then look back towards Sydney and Hunter. Cool, and then back out the window. So those were some of my observations that I noticed when I was actually on site, but when we actually took all of our clips and imported them into our various NLEs, we noticed a few other things. So the first thing was the file size between the different RAW formats. Now there's no surprise that ProRes RAW was the biggest. I just wasn't really sure how much bigger it would be compared to the other two formats, which is why we decided to try it. So taking a look at that 1 minute example, the NRAW clip was 5.26 gigabytes, the R3D RAW was 12.26 gigabytes, and the ProRes RAW file was 18.93 gigabytes for a 1 minute clip. So just keep that in mind, depending on which RAW format you're using. Now the other thing that was a factor when we started editing this video that changed by the time we have finished editing it was kind of how the Red Code RAW 3D files work in your different NLEs. And so at the time we had started this video, we could only really work with these files in the Premiere Pro beta version of the software. But now, as of right now, as of this recording, all of the internal RAW formats play pretty nicely with whichever NLE you're choosing, whether that's Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve, or working with ProRes files in Final Cut. It's pretty plug and play at this point. So the nice thing is you don't have to jump through as many hoops to work with the RAW formats. You can essentially edit them and work with them just how you would any other format. But a whole other aspect of the Nikon ZR is its photography capabilities. Now many early first look videos when this camera came out glazed over this since it's first and foremost a cinema camera, but we still decided to take it out to Bryant Park for a day to see how it holds up as a photography camera. Now since its 24.5 megapixel sensor is derived from the already great Z6 III, image quality is predictably excellent. And it can even match the impressive burst rates of up to 20 frames per second RAW and 120 frames per second in compressed JPEG. And ergonomically, its body is compact and it's very easy to handle, although a deeper grip would always be nice. There are definitely some limitations though. We tried to get a little fancy and do some slow shutter speed shots with mixed results, and what would have really helped with this would have been being able to compose our shots with a dedicated EVF. Now that 4-inch touchscreen is great, do not get me wrong, but photo purists know there is no substitute for a solid high-res EVF, especially on a bright day. So if you're looking for your first high-end portrait or sports photography camera, this is not your guy. But for a video-first creator who needs to capture thumbnails or who needs a solid travel camera or a nice stills camera for social, this could definitely fit the bill without having to buy a dedicated photo camera. Now I know I've danced around my initial thesis statement a little bit, but yes, Nikon is absolutely worth taking seriously as a video platform along with some of those other unnamed camera brands with very robust cine lineups. Things like the Nikon ZR itself, the 20 to 135mm f4 NIKKOR lens, third-party accessory support, and a wealth of RAW recording options all make Nikon a great option for narrative, doc, and commercial video shooters. And the fact that this is just Nikon's first post-RED acquisition camera is pretty rad. But what do you think of the ZR or Nikon's cine capabilities? Politely discuss it in the comments below. Seriously, we do read them. I'm Nick with B&H. Stay creative.